So before this video starts, I would like to remind you that this is part 2 of a 2-part video, and that you need to watch the first part in order to understand what virtualization is. And starting now, I will be showing you how to enable VTX/SVM on your CPU, and it's important that you do this. If you do not enable SVM/VTX, you will likely have problems later in terms of limited amounts of memory that you can assign to your VM and other problems that are related to not having hardware support. So every computer is different. In my case, I have to spam F1, and that'll let me into the BIOS. Sometimes it's F8, F10, F12, delete. Every computer is different. You can just Google your computer model and figure out how to do that. In my BIOS, you kind of just look around and poke around, and eventually you'll find something that'll tell you about virtualization. So I go to the CPU tab, and here I have core multiprocessing, hyperthreading technology. No, that's not it. Security, virtualization, there we go. And you see I have Intel virtualization technology enabled, and that's going to allow me to use the features. And it even tells you here, when enabled, a VMM can utilize the additional hardware capabilities provided by Intel virtualization technology. Every computer will be different. It will not look the same as my BIOS. I repeat, it will not look the same as my BIOS here. Every BIOS is different. Every computer is different. You will just have to poke around, and you will find something that will say either virtualization technology like this, Intel VT, it'll say AMD SVM, or just SVM mode, or something like that. Just poke around. Just looking, you will not break anything. You can look around until you find it, and then if you're still not unsure, you can Google the thing that you just found, and you'll figure out it, just by Googling it, if that is the correct thing. I cannot help you through this. This is an individual assignment that you will have to figure out by yourself. Alright guys, so I'm here on my Windows machine, and so first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to right click Task Manager, and I'm going to go to Performance, and in here under CPU you will see that because I have SVM enabled, I have a AMD CPU, it says virtualization enabled. That is very important to see. So this is also where you can see the model if you weren't sure before what I was talking about. And so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to open up my browser. I'm going to go to virtualbox.org, go to Downloads, and you'll see here a bunch of different links. You see here Windows host, because we have a Windows machine. That's going to download the exe. Let that download. Open it up. And we'll just install it. Next, next, next. Let it do all that stuff. Yes, install. We will get to this point. Install it. Would you like to install this device software? Yes. And we'll start it after installation. Alright, so here we have our VirtualBox. So the next thing we need to do is we need to actually go get our operating system. So we're going to download Debian, debian.org. And then we can go to download. Oh wow, we have Debian 11 now. I did not even know. So we'll download that, I guess. And now that should be in our downloads folder. Yep, there we go. That's an ISO. We don't need to open that. So we go into our VirtualBox and we click New. Add is in case we already have a virtual machine that's existing. We want to add it back into the software. So the first thing we need to do is we give it a name. So we'll just call it Debian Learn Linux. I don't know, something like that. And this is the folder where it's going to put it. So if you have a different hard drive or something where you would like to store it, you should do that now. We'll probably use about 50 gigabytes of storage. You can use less, but 50 gigabytes will give us a good, decent amount of room to work with. We'll say type Linux, version Debian. It automatically selected that. And we'll click Next. This is going to be how much memory we're going to give to our VM. So again, we'll go to our Task Manager, and we go to Performance, Memory, and you'll see I have 32 gigabytes of memory. So I can give it as much as I want, and it will probably be able to handle it. Realistically, you only need to give it around 512 megabytes if you're only going to be using the TTY. But we are going to eventually be giving it a GUI. So just to be on the safe side, I'm going to give it 2 gigabytes of memory. You can see it's in megabytes, so you'll do that conversion. Just divide by 1024. But in your case, you just have to see how much memory you have available and work with that. So click Next. We'll say create a virtual hard disk now. So that's going to be that what I was saying before, that it's going to create a virtual hardware that we're going to use. we won't be worrying about this. We'll just use a VDI for now. Dynamically allocated again. We won't worry about it right now. And I'm gonna give this, like I said, a 450 gigabytes. You can give it however much space you have that you want. Would like to give it. Give it no less than. I'd say give it no less than 20 gigabytes. You'll start struggling under that in later stages, probably. All right. So now we have our VM, and we can click Start. But what's going to happen is this is a blank machine. So it's going to ask us for a disk to start with. And we can go here, and this is like our virtual disk drive. So we can go and get our ISO, which is Debian 11. Next, choose Start. All right. And so we'll get this screen, and we can just say Graphical Install. And that'll give us an installer that we can click on, just like on Windows, and we'll click English or whatever language you want. Continue, United States, I'm in the US. Your key map, I have an American English keyboard. Let that keep going. All right, so we get to this step, we give it a host name. So we'll leave it as Debian for now. That's basically the name of your machine. Domain name, we can leave that blank, not applicable to us. We'll give it a root password. Do not forget this password. This is the root user is like the admin user on Windows. You do not want to forget this root password, otherwise you will not be able to get into your machine. So I'll just set a easy root password. This is a VM, no one's gonna break in. I mean, it's just for this course. We'll give myself a name. This is going to create a user for us. So I'll write my name there, Kevin Diaz, and I'll give myself a username. I'll use my first and last name. I'll give myself a password for that. Again, doesn't have to be crazy. This is a VM, not a real machine. But the clock, I'm on the Eastern time zone. To continue. Okay, here we go. Detect disk, partitioning disk. We can manually set it up. For now, we're just going to use the entire disk and let it do its own thing by itself. And click continue. It's going to automatically figure out the sizes of the partitions that we're going to need and make everything good. You can make everything in one partition, or you can separate them out. Let's leave it as one. And you can see here it's going to make one big slash directory and then a 1 gigabyte swap directory. And we'll talk about what that is later. For now, it doesn't really matter. And then we'll say continue, finish partitioning, and write changes to disk, continue. Do I confirm that this is true? Yes, continue. And from here on out, it's going to actually start installing the Linux operating system and do all the things that it needs to do. All right, so now our operating system is installed, and it's asking if we wish to scan more media. We do not have any more media, so we'll just continue. United States, this is going to be for package manager. Remember, as we talked about that at some point, this is where you download your software from, so make sure you pick the country where you're in. So you can kind of look through this list and pick whatever is closest to you or whatever you believe is closest to you. So for example, I'm in New York, I'm on the island of Manhattan, therefore I know that this will probably be a fast mirror for me, Columbia University. You can always go for the default ftp.us.debian or something like that. But did you see this is MIT? You can pick whatever you believe is close to you. I'm going to go with this one. Continue. You can leave this blank unless you have some kind of setup with that. And here we go. Errors detected while trying to use a specific Debian archive mirror. Possible reasons errors age include. Okay. So it wants me to pick a different mirror. So then I'll just pick the regular FTP US Debian. To continue, and we'll be fine. All right. So here's going to ask us if we want to do a survey. I do not. Continue. And from here on out, it's going to ask us if we want to install a desktop environment. We're going to say no for now, and we're not going to not going to install any of this either. We're just going to leave standard system utilities, completely minimal installation. We continue, and from here on, we'll have our operating system. Now this is where I'm doing it on this Windows machine just to show what you guys will likely see. If you're on a Mac, you'll probably see something similar. I'm going to be doing this on my Linux machine, so I will not have this kind of setup with VirtualBox. If you have any questions about VirtualBox, you got to do your own Googling, do your own research, and you'll find a bunch of different answers to your problems. It's very unlikely that there's a problem that you're encountering that other people have never encountered before. VirtualBox is very popular. There are also tons of YouTube videos online. KevTech IT Solutions. If you haven't seen him, subscribe to him. He's got a bunch of great videos on this with VirtualBox and Windows and stuff. It's all the same. Windows, Linux, whatever you're installing in VirtualBox, it's all the same. All right, so here it asks us if we want to install Grub and where we want to install it. If we want to install on the primary drive, we will say yes. It is important that you say yes. This is what actually loads and starts our operating system. We will select the main drive, which is this first one, dev SDA. You won't see any other ones because we didn't add another hard drive to this virtual machine. In the real world, you might have multiple hard drives. You'll have to select the right one that you believe deserves to have Grub on it. And we'll talk about what Grub is and how to set it up and all that stuff later. All right, so we finished our installation. We click continue. It's going to restart the operating system, or the machine, sorry. And here we get the Grub menu. This is giving us an option. So let's say we have, when I start my computer, I have Windows and Linux installed on this computer. So it'll give me an option to start my Linux machine or start my Windows machine. You can use your arrow keys and navigate around, or go to recovery mode. Let's say your main operating system is broken. I'm just going to start Debian, the first option that was up there. And there we go. And we can use our root and log in with that. And we have our machine. Now, if you'd like to make this screen a little bit bigger, we can come up here to view, go to virtual screen, scale to 150%, and there we go. Now, something that may happen is you might say, okay, view, full screen mode, you click switch, oh, I'm stuck. So you come down here, and there will be this little pop-up bar, and that'll allow you to click this little button here. Same thing with scaled mode. You come here to scaled mode. Well, what do I do now? Well, you have to click the host button, which is right control, like as in the control on the right side of your keyboard, and C, and boom, there you go. There's your, you're back in your regular mode of seamless mode or whatever it's called. Okay, so when you're logged in as your root user, it has to be the root user, not your regular user, because you still can't run admin quote-unquote commands as your regular user, not yet. So what you need to do is you need to install the VirtualBox edition. This is an optional step, but you want this if you want a smoother experience with VirtualBox. It basically has drivers, so we go to devices, insert guest edition CD image. You won't get an error like me, I already have it installed. So then you'll go in here and you'll type lsblk, and that'll give us a listing of all drives that are attached to this machine, and you'll see SR0 at the bottom. SR is referring to our quote-unquote CD. So we need to mount that CD so that we can actually view it. So we type mount space /dev /SR0 space /MNT, and you can see I already mounted it. Now we will talk about all these commands at some other point, but for now we're just going to CD, which is going to be change directory, into /MNT into that folder. We're going to type ls, and we'll see all these files. And what we're interested in is that file at the bottom called VBoxLinuxAdditions.run. Now, we cannot just run this quite yet. We need to get the kernel headers, which is something you don't have to worry about, in order for this program to work. So what you need to do is type uname-r, I believe it is. Yes, uname-r, and that'll give us this number, 5.10.0-8-AMD64. What this is the version of the Linux kernel that you are currently running right now. You will then type apt search. apt is the package manager. Apt apt, as I like to say, is the package manager for Debian and Ubuntu and a bunch of other operating systems. Search, let us search through all the packages in the package manager, and then linux-headers. And you'll see there's a bunch of stuff. So I'm going to clear by typing clear. I don't want it in the way. And I'm going to actually hit the up arrow 2 times, and that'll let me go back to a previous command that I ran. And then I'll say space, and then this vertical line that's right underneath the backspace, we call it a pipe, and put that into a program called head. And that'll only print out the first 10 lines. And so we can see that program at the top, Linux-headers, -5.10.0-8-AMD64 matches the number in our uname-r. And we can install that one by typing apt install linux-headers-5.10.0-8-AMD64 and hit enter. I already did it, so I don't need to do it again. And then once you're done with that, you can clear screen, and we see again, we type // inside of the /MNT directory. Remember, we're inside /mnt. You can type pwd to see where you are. You are inside the /mnt directory. Type ls, you'll see the file there. Type /, which means in this current directory, VBoxLinuxAdditions.run. And capitalization does matter. I repeat, capitalization matters. So we make sure everything matches, click enter, and that'll start installing our tools. And you can see we're actually missing some other things. So actually we need to say apt install build-essentials. Sorry, essential with no S. And we click yes. And what this tool basically did was give us a bunch of different tools that allow us to build software on Linux, which is apparently required to run these tools. We hit the up arrow a few times again, and we execute this command again for VBoxLinuxAdditions.run, and it should work this time, in theory. And this is how it is with Linux. You get an error message, you figure out what the error message is by reading it. You actually read the error message, and you solve the problem by reading and using your intuition, using your brain to actually try to determine what is wrong. So now it's asking us to restart our system. We'll do that. And the only reason I knew to install build-essentials is because of experience. I've done this enough times with Linux, so I already know kind of what the error messages are asking about. Now that we install those tools, we have better integration and functionality with VirtualBox. And what that means is that certain features within VirtualBox will simply just work better or work in general. Thank you for watching, and I hope you have a great day.